Interrupting our regular programming in order to bring you breaking news about the humanitarian flotilla that was bound for Gaza. It has reportedly been the scene of deadly clashes with Israeli soldiers. A Turkish aid agency being quoted by Turkish media is saying that 2 people have been killed and more than 30 injured. Al Jazeera can now confirm there has been gunfire on board one vessel. That vessel, the Mavi Marmara. The convoy is carrying thousands of tons of aid and it's attempting to break the Israeli blockade of Gaza. About 700 activists are on board the boats, including a Nobel laureate and a Holocaust survivor. These are the pictures that we've been seeing, we've been receiving here at Al Jazeera from a live feed from Turkish TV. In the last hour or so, it is a confused picture of what's going on. Just to go over what we know so far, we're joined on the line by Nicole Johnston, our correspondent in Gaza City. It does sound quite confused, but what exactly is known, Nicole?
As you said, Veronica, what we do know so far, it seems to have been confirmed by a number of reports, is that 2 people have been killed on the lead vessel. That is the Mavi Marmara. Most of the activists are on that ship. Apparently, in the last sort of 30 minutes, 1 hour, the Israelis opened fire on the ship. A couple of people have been killed, and apparently more than 30 people have also been injured.
Was there any warning from the Israeli military?
Overnight, from what we hear from our correspondent who is on the ship, is that the Israelis actually contacted the ship's captain, and that was at around 20 GMT. He asked him to identify himself and say where the ship was headed. After that, a couple of Israeli naval vessels actually flanked the flotilla from a distance, and an aircraft had been flying overhead. So it had certainly been building up the momentum towards a confrontation. Exactly how much notice they had about what appears to have been an attack, we don't know at this stage.
Nicole, the reports that are coming in, which we haven't confirmed because we're so early on in this story, as we've been saying, is that the Israeli military used gunfire. There are some reports that said that they had stun grenades. These ships, though, were they armed? How prepared were they for this kind of confrontation?
No, they weren't prepared, and they certainly weren't armed from what we've been told. For the last few days, they've made it very clear that there were no weapons on this ship, that it was completely a humanitarian aid ship with activists, some supplies. The entire flotilla is carrying 10,000 tons of goods for the people of Gaza, construction materials, cement, kit fabric, homes. So that's the sort of material on the ship. Apparently people had been told to put on life jackets and prepare themselves when it appeared that the Israelis were on the horizon.
All right. Nicole, can I ask you to stand by just for a moment? We've also got our correspondent, Ayman Mohedin, on the line in Jerusalem. Ayman, I believe that these kind of attempts to break the Israeli siege on Gaza have happened in the past. Have there been any attempt like this by the Israeli military to board armed and any incidents of deaths in such assaults?
Well, there have, over the past 3 years that the siege has been roughly in place, so attempts by international activists and others to carry out such missions, if you will, to attempt to break the siege. And it has happened both by land and previously by sea. By far, those who have attempted to come by sea have been much smaller in size. This is the largest both in quantity and in number of participants. The previous attempts to enter Gaza by sea have been organized by activists and have varied. There have been results, to many people's surprise, the first time that the attempt to enter Gaza was successful. This was several attempts ago, and there have been times where vessels have been diverted by the Israeli Navy once into Lebanon and other times. So there has been a record, if you will, of previous attempts to try to enter Gaza's territorial waters, and then ultimately the port of Gaza has been intercepted by the Israeli Navy. But there have been also times where these ships were allowed to enter. Now, certainly this has been the most significant of developments, both in terms of the size of the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, more than nearly 6 vessels that at least participate in this, at least as we understand. So, and the involvement of Israeli troops in the run-up to this particular raid, if you will, had been circulating for some time. So the Israeli military made very clear in advance that it would prevent the ship from entering Gaza's territorial waters. The scope and size of the military operation involved still to be seen, and we'll learn more about that in the coming hours. But for the time being, certainly this has been the largest attempt by international activists to enter Gaza's water, and so far it appears the Israeli military operation to prevent that convoy or that flotilla from entering Gaza's territorial water.
Ayman, as you speak, we're showing pictures of a person who's been injured, who's lying down, who looks in really very serious shape. How much of a shock is it going to be to people, Israelis and Palestinians alike, to see that it appears the Israeli military has boarded this and killed unarmed civilians?
Well, in the coming hours, it will certainly emerge exactly how this unfolded. It will come to a great deal of surprise, as many who have been following this very closely, who have been seeing the images and the reports from the activists who are boarding, that indeed all of the images of the activists on board those ships were indeed very civilian in nature and peaceful. There was all the images that we've been seeing clearly show that the majority of content on the been civilian in nature, food supplies, medical supplies, and what have you. So it will come as a great surprise to many in Israel and around the international community what could have possibly led to this type of confrontation, the type of force that the Israeli military used to get on board the ship. Now, what we do know from the Israeli military is that indeed there was an attempt to communicate with the ship and tell the ship to turn around or enter the port of Ashdod to dock, and that clearly did not happen as we understand it. The events that happened afterwards still clearly revealing that there was some kind of confrontation. To what degree live ammunition may have been used or what type of force may have been used will certainly emerge in the coming hours as we get more information both from the military and eyewitnesses from the ship.
All right, Ayman Mohedin on the line from Jerusalem. I'm going to ask you to stand by as well as this unfolds. Just to remind viewers, we're watching breaking news and the first pictures from that humanitarian flotilla that was bound for Gaza in an attempt to break the Israeli siege on Gaza. It has apparently been attacked. The reports from a Turkish aid agency quoted by the Turkish media are that Israeli military boarded the ship and that 2 people were killed in the ensuing confrontation. At least 30 are reported to have been injured. The situation is very confused. We're getting reports from the boat, but we're trying to sort through the various sources of information. But that, as far as we know, is the situation.